Heavy rains and a combination of riverine, urban and flash flooding have led to an unprecedented climate-induced disaster in Pakistan since June 2022, causing widespread fatalities, killing livestock, and damaging and destroying public and private infrastructure across the country. Rain-induced landslides and floods have also damaged agricultural land and forests, impacting local ecosystems. 84 districts nationwide have been notified as calamity hit by the government of Pakistan, mainly in Baluchistan, 32 districts, Sindh, 23 districts, and KPK, 17 districts. Pakistan is experiencing its worst humanitarian crisis in a decade, spurred by extreme torrential rainfall and devastating flash floods. The most widespread flooding in the 73-year history of Pakistan has left one-third of the country underwater and parts resembling a small ocean. The floods have impacted over 4.2 million people, almost 1,700 people have died, including 458 children, more than 1,600 are injured, and 500,000 are displaced. Since mid-June, the flooding has damaged over 1 million homes and destroyed 130 bridges and 3,000 kilometers of roads. Authorities warn the flood waters could take up to 6 months to recede. The destruction of critical infrastructure has created severe access constraints for civilians and government officials working to reach affected populations. The disaster aggravates pre-existing climate, economic, and public health crises, with women, girls, and other vulnerable groups bearing the brunt. More than 6.4 million people are in dire need of humanitarian aid, requiring the international community to work collaboratively with local actors and the government of Pakistan to address immediate needs while providing support for longer-term prevention and rehabilitation efforts. Satellite images reveal the extent of the devastation. The retaining wall of Lake Manchar, the largest lake in Pakistan, located in the southeastern province of Sindh, burst last week, causing thousands to flee and drowning hundreds of villages. Sindh has been the province worst affected by the floods, with 522 deaths reported, including 219 children, but other regions also face apocalyptic levels of destruction. In southwestern Baluchistan, Pakistan's poorest province, flooding has destroyed 60% of the houses. Nearly 300 people, including over 100 children, have been killed in northwestern KPK since mid-June. The floods have damaged dozens of bridges, hundreds of kilometers of roads and water supply lines, and more than 1,000 houses in Pakistan-administered Gilgit-Baltistan. Over 900,000 acres of crops in Punjab, including nearly half of the country's cotton, have been destroyed. Jacobabad, considered the world's hottest city, is already underwater. Despite early speculation, climate experts say Pakistan's floods are not primarily attributable to glacial melt. The country is home to more than 7,200 glaciers, the highest number outside the Antarctic and Arctic polar caps. However, the volume of rainfall in Pakistan this year has been historic. The country has seen 190% more rain than the 30-year average, and meteorologists forecast more unabating precipitation in the weeks to come. Sindh and Baluchistan have received 784% and 496% of their average rainfall this season, respectively. The excessive production of carbon emissions by industrialized countries in the global north is also causing severe climate impacts in the global south. Pakistan is home to 2.6% of the world's population, yet it has contributed only 0.4% of global carbon emissions since 1959, well below its fair share of safe emissions. Countries in the global north, on the other hand, have exceeded their quotas by 92%, with 100 companies responsible for 71% of emissions. The United States accounts for 4% of the world's population but is responsible for 13% of global carbon emissions, bearing a disproportionate liability. Continued inaction from the global north to reduce its emissions will further contribute to climate-induced humanitarian disasters in countries across the global south. This year's calamity alone would have been disastrous, but the flooding compounds pre-existing economic and public health crises in Pakistan. The government reported a record 27% inflation rate for August, requiring it to meet conditions to restart an International Monetary Fund (IMF) plan, including ending subsidies on oil and increasing tariffs on electricity consumption. The government accepted the requirements, which has helped stave off default but inflicted strains on the poorest and middle class. Pakistan has been facing heightened food insecurity due to inflated food prices resulting from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The widespread destruction of Pakistan's agriculture and livestock will trigger additional severe food shortages. The flooding has drowned 900,000 livestock and obliterated 80 to 90% of crops and over 4 million acres of farmland. Faisal Eddy, head of the Eddy Foundation, Pakistan's largest social welfare organization, says that those who have survived the floods now risk death by starvation. The United Nations warns of increasing risks of mortality and severe acute malnutrition among newborns, with health services unable to meet growing needs. The World Health Organization (WHO) estimates the flooding has damaged more than 1,460 health centers, 432 of which are inoperable, primarily in Sindh province. Health officials are concerned about large-scale outbreaks of waterborne diseases, namely cholera, diarrhea, and malaria, and respiratory illnesses, which have caused significant strains on health facilities and killed almost 1,200 people. According to the WHO, diarrhea, measles, respiratory infections, skin diseases, typhoid, and vector-borne diseases, such as dengue and malaria, have been reported, especially in badly affected areas. With 500,000 people crowded into emergency relief camps, the health crisis will likely deteriorate further. The need for clean drinking water, hygiene kits, and sanitation is ever present. There is also an urgent need to scale up disease surveillance, replenish health supplies, and restore damaged medical facilities. As of the 30th of September, the National Disaster Management Authority (NDMA) has recorded nearly 1,700 deaths and more than 12,800 injuries since mid-June. The highest death rates were recorded in Sindh, 747, Baluchistan, 325, and KPK, 307. More than 2 million houses have been damaged or destroyed and around 7.9 million people are reportedly displaced, including some 598,000 people living in relief camps, according to reports by the Provincial Disaster Management Authorities (PDMA) of the affected provinces. Estimates indicate that more than 7,000 schools are currently being used to host displaced populations, while an estimated 25,100 schools have been damaged. During his visit to Pakistan in September, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres noted that he had never seen climate carnage on this scale, and urged massive and urgent financial support for Pakistan. National efforts to support people affected by this climate disaster require effective international solidarity and effective justice, through the mobilization of support for relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction, and through concrete and equitable climate action.